Hello, welcome to this lovely cooking session where today on the menu, a load of terrible books. Before we proceed, I'm going to preface with a little bit of a disclaimer. Some feelings may be hurt. Proceed at your own risk. It feels kind of strange to be excited to talk about the things you hated, but I'm really excited to slander some of these books. 2023 for me was a year of terrible reads. Although actually a lot of the books I read weren't even comically bad, they were just sort of eh. A lot of these books I don't have passionate feelings about, but I'm going to try and prioritize the ones that I can really, I've forgotten the word I was going to use there. Anyway, I'm going to try and talk about as many books as I can in a timely fashion. I don't want this video to last for hours because somebody's got to edit. Shall we start with the ones that I have beside me right now? Look at them. I think we should start with perhaps one of the worst books I have ever read in my entire life that I truly do not understand the point of. The Promise by Damon Galgut. This is a book set in South Africa and you follow this family as they all drop dead one by one. You catch up with them when they die. Now the way the synopsis paints the book, it seems to be about race in South Africa due to this family's promise to a black woman that has been working with them their whole lives. But what it really is just a whole load of nothing. I didn't like the way it was written. It was kind of cringy and uncomfortable, some of the sentences. I should have tabbed it really because I can't remember one off the top of my head. It also has something that I'm realizing I really do not like in books. Random time jumps. There's ways of doing it that feel natural to the story. You can speed up the pace without having to just say 5 years later so-and-so was doing this, because then you just feel like you've been reintroduced to a whole new book. And I personally find it really jarring. You'll find out with a few other books on this list, actually. But this is a book that I just truly do not understand the point. It apparently has all this literary merit, but it really doesn't. I don't know how it won the Booker Prize. I don't really take the Booker Prize recommendations as books I think I'll actually like, because I did a whole video, I did a whole experiment, and it was not successful. And I can determine that the Booker Prize and I are mortal enemies, because this was actually dreadful. There's a reason I keep seeing this in pretty much every thrift shop I go into, and that's because it is truly appalling. And that's all I'll say on that one. This next book may turn a few hairs, because I truly do know how popular it is. My biggest problem with this book was not 90% of it. In fact, I was really enjoying it. I was really enjoying racing through the short chapters, trying to work out who I thought had done it, and then the twist came, and it was really just chuck across the room worthy. It truly does not make any sense, and I think with thriller books like this, the twist is arguably the most important part of the book. And when the twist doesn't make sense, the entire book doesn't make sense, and that is what led to me chucking it. I am disappointed with this because it started off so promisingly, but it just did not have the payoff that it needed to have. No thank you. Next we have another thriller book, one that is actually quite highly rated, which is rare for a thriller book because I feel like they are very hit or miss, even the popular ones. This is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, and it follows a woman who sees her son stabbing someone, and she just keeps getting taken back in time. Every time she wakes up, she's a day before the incident occurred, then 2 days, 3, 4, 7, 110, until she eventually finds out what's going on. I think the most terrible thing about it is that I found it pretty boring. I wasn't invested. There was a twist that kind of surprised me, but it just kind of felt like, okay. It wasn't mind-blowing. I also thought the writing was a bit sparse and lacked the oomph that it really needed to have. I didn't connect with the story in any way. I know lots of people have, so I'm not saying that it's terrible. I wouldn't really recommend, but people have liked this on the whole, so perhaps this is for you. Maybe if you have children you'll like this, because there is a lot of focus on that. I feel like this next book is going to get me cancelled. This is The Storied Life of A.J. Thickery by Gabrielle Zevin, who wrote a book, Tomorrow Times 3, I'm not saying its full title, that I really enjoyed last year. However, this one did not go to plan. Some credit for the book. I think it's written fairly well. It's short and it reads fast. Some would argue too fast. This is my least favourite trope apparently. Random, pointless time jumps. I get that the passage of time was necessary for the inevitable, devastating ending. Actually, was it really inevitable? You didn't have to do this, Gabrielle. You really didn't. I really loved the first sort of 100 pages. I thought this is going to go really well. Then the random time jumps kicked in and I just started to not care anymore because we were going through this man, AJ Fikri's life way too fast and I just wanted it to slow down. I thought it was going to be a nice slow book about musings around literature and life, and I thought it was going to be cozier than it actually was. Hang on, have I not even explained to you what this is about? This is about a kind of grumpy bookstore owner who one day finds a child in his bookshop, and there's also a little bit of a romance, which, because of the random time jumps, I could not connect to at all. I have heard some reviews where people really praise the random time jumps and say that it really added something to the story. However, I do not agree with that opinion, which is why this book has landed here. The next book is one that I have never talked about before on this channel. I would like to say thank you to the publishers who sent this advanced reading copy to me. That's very kind of you. I'm sorry that this book has landed in this list. This is a dystopian graphic novel about a world where people have decided to get rid of their hearts, and you follow the one girl that has decided to keep hers. Now, This is very high concept. I really liked the idea for the story. I thought it could be quite nice and gothic and atmospheric. I feel like I did not pronounce that properly. But the problem with this book is that it really didn't go anywhere. It has all the plot beats that you expect it to have, but because it's told in this graphic novel format, it just feels a bit jarring because it's quite abrupt in the way that it covers certain themes. And I'm not saying those themes aren't strong, because they are, but I just feel like this book needed a much better plot and also could have done with being longer. But it's not truly awful, and I think if you like the sound of it, maybe you should read it, but I don't think you really should, because it just isn't that brilliant. And, you know, I'm sad about it, because I always am when books have a great concept but don't live up to that. Our next ingredient is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, which is about a man who moves to Paris and kind of gets tangled up in the life of this man called Giovanni. I have seen so many rave reviews for this book, and it kind of baffles the mind in some ways, because it has the most brutal sexism that I've ever read. There's lines about wanting to beat women. Look, I know it was written in the 50s, but just because that kind of attitude was tolerated at that point in history still doesn't make it okay. And look, yes, I could have ignored it, but I couldn't ignore it because it was so brutal. You know, most kind of classic-y books you read that are a bit sexist are a lot less horrendous than that. And look, I can kind of understand why you would enjoy this book, because the writing is quite nice in the first half. In the second half, it gets a bit sort of predictable, and I just found it a bit annoying, in fact, because I just hated the character I was reading from. But I just think this review is more of just a warning of what you're getting yourself in for, which I would have appreciated before I got hold of this book. I really would have. Our final ingredient of the video, I don't want to overcomplicate the recipe, is Watership Down by Richard Adams. Now, this book had been on my unread shelf for something of 5 years before I actually read it. And it should have just never been on my to-read shelf, because 8-year-old me was right when I thought it was going to be boring, so I never read it. I do not recommend. I truly think this book is a complete waste of time. It's just about rabbits going round in circles, trying to find a new place to live, but it's just not interesting in any way, shape or form. There are a few moments where I was a little bit scared for the rabbits, but other than that, it was just 600 pages of rabbits trekking through various different farms and fields. That's it. I don't even remember a lot of the plot, because by the point that stuff was going on, my brain had just checked out. Just checked out the hotel and was not coming back for a bit of lost luggage. If you hadn't guessed it, this book is the lost luggage. So bad, you don't even want to get it back. Please, if we're writing rabbit books, can we write them better than this? I believe that is all Excuse me. I believe that is all we're going to cover in this video, because while I do have many other books I could talk about, there are many videos out there of me slandering these books already, and I didn't just want to completely repeat what I've already said, so I will leave some of those videos down below. There were quite a lot of Goodreads choice horror books that I could have talked about in this video, but I did not, because I've just uploaded that video. So if you want more worst books of the year slander from me, go and watch that video. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in a more positive scenario where I am in fact not slandering books, but telling you that you really should consider reading them. Thank you very much for watching this, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.